Good morning. I want to welcome you in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Whether you're joining us here or online, I hope and pray that the Holy Spirit will touch our hearts together today. I have a gratitude moment. We'll begin. It's always hard to narrow it down to one thing, but this week I thought it could serve as a gratitude piece, but also an invitation for next Sunday, because we received these posters, paintings from the Jewish temple here in Batavia. They sold their building, and they wanted to give us a gift, something that would stay with us, and they offered it. Of course, we received it gladly, and so they're hanging in the hallway over there with the inscription telling where they came from. But next Sunday at 10 o'clock, they are coming, a couple people from the Jewish community are coming to bless these for us. So it's exciting. I'm thinking today, there was an article yesterday about the 4th year anniversary for the attack on the synagogue of the Tree of Life. And it just made me think about the importance of the things that we are doing, even though it's a small act of connection. It is so timely for our world right now with the anti-Semitism that's going on and the hate people are spewing out against the Jewish people. So it's more meaningful for me that they have given us this gift and that we have this bond that we share with them. So we're continuing the sermon series of inflation and the cycle of blessings. I know you loved hearing about inflation because you haven't had to deal with it in your life enough. We're dealing with it at the store, wherever we go, and on the news, and knowing that the world is struggling, and there is this sense of scarcity that is coming with this high inflation, the rapid inflation that's going on. So today, the invitation of this series has been to focus on the abundance of God and to look at the currencies of our lives being more than just the money that we have, looking at the currencies of relationships, looking at truth as a currency for life, looking at wellness. We talked about how important it is for us to feel well, or to know that others are able to take rest and time to renew before we feel whole as a society. And today we're looking at gracious leadership. And this is really hard right now because, of course, it's election season. So there's a lot of talk about who's going to be the best leader. And it's hard to decide sometimes. Sometimes it's very easy, but I want to engage it today, hopefully not from a political point of view, but from a spiritual point of view, that how we look at leaders, it really matters for the health of our world and for the flow of the cycle of blessings. If we have leaders who are grounded, who are able to, if we see ourselves in those places where we are grounded and we're able to serve and love the world in the way of Christ, it makes a huge difference. So this currency, I was thinking about it, and I thought of at first sharing from the Wizard of Oz about the great wizard, behind the curtain. But then I thought, well, okay, we're going to go with something a little more profound. So we're going to go with a sermon from Martin Luther King Jr. This is from 1968, a few weeks before he was assassinated. And he talked about this, the drum major instinct, as something in all of us wanting to be recognized. This is kind of the emotional program for happiness, where we think that one person could have it all. They can be perfect, or as the leader, you're above others and you get to be recognized. So Martin Luther King Jr. Says this, and there is deep down within all of us an instinct. It is a kind of drum major instinct, a desire to be out front, a desire to lead the parade, a desire to be first. And it is something that runs a whole gamut of life. But then he talks about true greatness is about service. So he says you must earn it, this greatness that we're talking about. True greatness comes not by favoritism, but by fitness. If you want to be important, wonderful. If you want to be recognized, wonderful. If you want to be great, wonderful. But recognize that he who is great among you shall be your servant. That's your new definition of greatness. So thinking, he's, of course, this is a sermon, so he's referring to the words of Jesus about that. That's your new definition of greatness. And this morning, the thing that I like about it, by giving that definition of greatness, it means that everybody can be great. So all of us have these gifts of leadership. Because everybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and your verb agree to serve. You don't have to know about Plato and where's Lauren? You don't have to know about Plato and Aristotle to serve. You don't have to know Einstein's theory of relativity. So it goes on, and the idea is that we all can serve. We all can be great. We all can be gracious leaders. And we're all called sometimes to be leaders. Now, some of us may not think of ourselves as leaders because we don't have a job title that says that. But you are a leader in your own way, whether it's in your family or in the moment your skills are needed, that's leadership. And so the invitation today is to explore what it means to serve, what it means to be great in service, and to see that as an invitation from Christ for us to live in the way of love. So I'm going to invite us to prepare our hearts for worship. Invite you to take a deep breath, center yourself, be present to this moment of grace. Breathe deeply. Let go of the distractions of the day, the worries of the world, whatever is holding you back from experiencing the divine grace in this moment. God, we come before you, opening our hearts to you, to your healing, to your love, to your grace. We ask for your blessings on us today as we worship, as we bring our hearts before you to know the power of greatness through your love, through service, through giving of ourselves, and to see the same in others, and to affirm that. Help us today as we learn from the example of Christ in his humble service, to know each day as a gift from you to love and to be loved. We pray this in the way of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Good morning. Please stand and join us for our first song, Awake My Soul.
How fickle my heart and how woozy my eyes. I struggle to find any truth in your lies. And now my heart stumbles on things I don't know. This weakness I feel I must finally show. Lend me your hand and we'll conquer them all. Lend me your heart and I'll just let you fall. Lend me your eyes, I can change what you see. But your soul you must keep totally free.
So today, thinking about leadership and gracious leadership, I have been thinking of the many places in our world where there is this lack of leadership or misunderstanding of leadership. Oftentimes we think of a leader that's going to come and save or solve the problems of the organization or the country or the county or whatever group they're dealing with. Even in the church, sometimes people think there's one person that's going to come and save the whatever is ailing a group or a church. And so what came to my mind is that, of course, something in the recent news, thinking of Liz Truss, elected in September as the Prime Minister of England, came in guns blazing. She had all the answers to the woes of the country. And I hope you hear me about this. I'm not trying to criticize a leader, but I'm just showing this as an example of where we go wrong. And it's not just her, because people really believed that's what they needed. One person that's going to come in with their ideas. She didn't consult too many people about how her ideas are going to work out. Didn't really seem to do the hard work of building coalitions and working with people. Just came in thinking that it was going to be solved. So we're going to watch a little video of her, one of her speeches defending her views of how she was going to handle the economy in England.
We gather at a vital time for the United Kingdom. These are stormy days. Together, we've mourned the death of Queen Elizabeth II, the rock on which modern Britain was built. We're now in a new era under King Charles III. We're dealing with the global economic crisis caused by COVID and by Putin's appalling war in Ukraine. In these tough times, we need to step up. I'm determined to get Britain moving, to get us through the tempest, and to put us on a stronger footing as a nation. The scale of this challenge is immense. War in Europe for the first time in a generation, a more uncertain world in the aftermath of COVID, and a global economic crisis. That is why, in Britain, we need to do things differently. We need to step up. As the last few weeks have shown, it will be difficult. Whenever there's change, there is disruption. And not everybody will be in favour of change, but everyone will benefit from the results. A growing economy and a better future.
All right. Sounds very good.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by...
All right. So, think about this piece. What went wrong? Of course, we could sit there and analyze all the economic differences or how we might have done it differently, and all of that. But I think at the heart of it is a bigger issue, which is happening around the world, where people think it's just going to be one person. One person is going to be that leader that's going to solve things. It's going to rest on their shoulders. Somehow they are the ones to do it. And it's hard to get out of that mentality when so many around the world believe that. Today in Brazil, they're deciding who's going to be their president. So you watch these pieces, and there is a lot of turmoil. You look at Iran and what's happening with the protests and people demanding something different for their country, for their women. It's hard to see. Where is the leadership in that? Why is there so much division among the people instead, or the leaders? Where are the leaders? So you think about it on this global kind of perspective or level, but then you think about it for us. What does it mean for us? In her book, Dare to Lead, Brene Brown talks about some of the issues with leadership that we face today. And so she has 10, if you will, bad behaviors that we practice or we get involved in without really intending to be bad leaders, but that's what happens to us when we're in places of leadership, or what we expect of our leaders. She says that, number one, we avoid tough conversations, including giving honest, productive feedback. So how many of you have been in that place where you knew you needed to have a conversation with someone and tell them what's going on, but you avoided it? You talked to everybody else but that person. Why? Because it's hard. It's hard to have those difficult conversations. So that's where leaders, falter. I mean, why shout or gossip or tweet or do whatever we do that's so destructive, but not have those personal conversations? And then rather than spending a reasonable amount of time proactively acknowledging and addressing the fears and feelings that show up during change and upheaval, we spend an unreasonable amount of time managing problematic behaviors. So think about it when you're going through a tough period. And it's interesting that Liz Truss didn't mention at all Brexit. I mean, that's the elephant in the room. That's what they're really dealing with. And then don't mention it. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about the fears. Don't address the real issues. But then there are problem behaviors. You spend so much time on those. Even in families, when you think about it, there is some big issue going on, and you deal with all the problems but that one issue. Diminishing trust caused by a lack of connection and empathy, because people don't want to connect, and we're seeing more of that after COVID. People don't want to work in an office or a setting where there's cooperation and working with people, because most of the time it's a very dissatisfying experience. So rightly so, it's easier to just work from a distance. Not enough people are taking smart risks, and so this is creativity. People are afraid to do something creative because what would happen? They would get criticized. Instead of working through the process with others, they just play it safe. Don't take any risks. Then we get stuck, defined by setbacks, disappointments, and failures. So instead of learning from mistakes, we feel very stuck. Too much shame and blame, not enough accountability and learning. People are opting out of vital conversations about diversity and inclusivity. That's another thing. People feel very uncomfortable, so they don't talk about it and pretend like these issues don't exist. When something goes wrong, individuals and teams are rushing into ineffective and so unsustainable solutions rather than staying with a problem, identification and solving. So it's thinking, sometimes you're trying to fix the wrong thing because you didn't spend enough time thinking and paying attention. What's going on here? Living a little bit in the kind of gray zone of saying, instead of, to use back to the example of England, instead of spending time talking about the issues, we're just going to rush into having somebody who's going to come and fix it. And I hope that the new Prime Minister will do better, but if they're on the same path, it's not going to be much better. It's going to be the same thing. It's just different people, but the same problems because you don't really deal with the real problems. Organizational values are gauzy and assessed in terms of aspirations rather than actual behaviors that can be taught, measured, and evaluated. And we see that sometimes you hope to be this kind of church or this kind of family or this kind of organization, but really, who are you right now? What are your core values? Perfectionism and fear are keeping people from learning and growing. So always, if I can't do it perfectly, I'm not going to do anything. But there's going to always be a problem with that. So thinking about Jesus and his leadership and how he modeled for his disciples leadership, and he wanted them to be disciples. I love that he envisioned a different way of leadership. It wasn't a top-down. It wasn't someone who's going to come and save the world, even though they wanted him to be the one to come and save the world. And we do that sometimes with Jesus. We imagine that only Jesus can do these things, but we forget that Jesus told his disciples this: "Very truly I tell you, the one who believes in me will also do the works that I do, and in fact will do greater works than these, because I am going to the Father." So think about this. Jesus saying to his disciples, this is John 14, so this is his final speech to them. He's saying to them, hey, you're going to do greater things than me. I mean, imagine, do we think of that? We're able to do just like Jesus did, and even greater things. He believed that it is possible, and this is what he said. But we forget that. We only want that one person or one leader, or even we project that onto God, that God is going to come and save us somehow magically without us working together, without us doing the hard work of life. And I love that Jesus selected ordinary people to be leaders. Think about his group of disciples. What did they include? What kind of people? We always think of the fishermen, of course. They were just really, at the lowest of the low in that society. They did not have power. They had a whole taxation system that disadvantaged that industry, the people who were fishing. It was just like the unthinkable group, basically. They were not highly educated. They were, working with their hands. So Jesus picks these people, but he sees in them the potential. And guess what? They live up to it. That's the amazing thing. I mean, Peter, what did he do before Jesus? Just a fisherman, just a very ordinary guy. I mean, think about it here. If we were looking down the street, what person would be the fisherman of the day? Garbage collector, somebody that we would just totally miss and discount. I was aware of that myself last week. We have a group of cleaners that come here that work for ARC. And I saw a couple of people I wanted to talk to in the hallway. And so as I was walking by, like 4 people, I was like so focused on the people I wanted to talk to, I almost forgot to say hello. There are people that are cleaning here because, we take them for granted. I was really ashamed of myself, so I took a step back and said, hey, how are you doing, guys? It was just, but it is something that we all fall for. It's easy to not see those people. So Jesus could have done exactly that, looked for those highly educated people who had influence in society, because those were the people that would come. I mean, think about the people we nominate to go to Congress or Senate or political office. We look for those people that are of higher caliber, we think. We don't think of ordinary people being capable of doing something extraordinary. So for Jesus, it didn't matter to him that these people were very simple. He knew that each human being had the potential to be great. Back to Martin Luther King Jr., everyone has the potential to serve. Everyone has the potential to be a leader. It's just given the right circumstances and the right skills. Do any of you have any skills? If you have skills, just raise your hand. Any skill, it doesn't matter. Yes, you have skills. Okay. Tell me about your skills. What skills do you have? You're really good at music. All right. You feel embarrassed now. Why? What's wrong with that? You have a skill. You have a skill. It's true. Some of us are good. Yes? Lauren rakes leaves. Yeah, that's a skill, and it helps the community, and it depends on your perspective. Some people are of the philosophy of don't rake. Okay, I read these articles all. Huh? No. Do I live with that person? Yes. Why do we need to rake so much? But think about those little skills that you take for granted each day and how they make the world better. And sometimes, they come in so handy. Think about the example of sewing. When the pandemic started and masks were in short supply, all the people who knew how to sew, they stepped up. They used their skill and they helped others. They were sewing and giving, masks everywhere. It was such an incredible gift. Now, who would have thought that was like a leadership gift? But it was for the time, and it was very needed, and it helped people, and it was very appreciated. And so you think of these things. That's how we think. We need to think of leadership. So leadership for Jesus was about the ability to focus on God's love. So it's all about love at the end of the day for Jesus, to reach out in that love and to work with others to embrace that love for ourselves, but also for others. So it doesn't matter what the skill is, what the task might be. It could be just leading a team that is raking. I mean, it could be, or it could be teaching somebody how to rake. I actually had my neighbor came and I was working hard. Because I use it as my exercise actually. That's my little trick. But he said, I have a leaf blower. I said, I have one of those, but I can never master using it. It's such a hard thing. And he offered to show me. He said, you know what, when you have time, I'll show you. I'm like, okay. And so one of these days, I may learn the skills. So this is somebody offering somebody, mentoring others. You mentor others too in your life. I mean, even children, where do they learn their skills? From others, from adults that say, hey, I'll work with you on learning math. I'll show you how to do something creative, or I'll teach you how to drive, or all these things that are very simple yet very much needed. And so, before we get into this, the chapter we're going to read from, or the section of the chapter we're going to read from, Jesus, to show his disciples at the end, of course, he's distilling all of his teachings. This is the Last Supper with them, and he does something incredibly unusual for a leader. So leaders are supposed to lead, to show people what to do, tell people what to do, and get others to do the work around them. But Jesus gets in front of his disciples and kneels down and washes their feet. Incredible gift to show them this is what real leadership is. If you want to be a great leader, you got to be willing to wash feet. You got to be willing to love people truly and sincerely. It's not just about your ideas and your ability to organize or to give directions. It's about your ability to love and to serve. So he washed their feet and showed them this as their example. So he's going to tell them about that. He's not going to let them forget. So it's not just, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to tell you I did it, so you know this is important to me. It wasn't like he was trying to brag about it. He's not trying to brag. He was just trying to say, this is really important. Don't miss the point. So this is from John 13 through 17. You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for that is what I am. So he acknowledges, yes, his role is a teacher. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example that you also should do as I have done to you. Very truly I tell you, servants are not greater than their master, nor are messengers greater than the one who sent them. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them. So Jesus is reminding the disciples, you've got to do it in this way. I'm leaving. I'm going to send you the Holy Spirit to help you. You're going to be the ones to take on the mission. And they step up and they learn to lead in his way. They serve. Wherever they go, they love the people. They bring healing. They connect. They stay at people's homes humbly. But they organize. They talk about love. And they stir up trouble with that. And it wasn't just leadership that was weak, just sitting there being nice and gentle. They were showing a way of love that was so radical, they shook the whole world with it. They upset those in power who believe that leadership is about power and control, not about helping people realize that they have potential. That's dangerous work. And that's why it has to be done with a humble heart. It has to be done from a place of realizing that we're in this together. We're not one of us is above the others. Maybe, today I'm standing here before you, but next week, somebody else is going to give that message of hope through a piece of music. Maybe the sermon won't be so great. Maybe whatever, I mean, it happens. Or maybe the music is not so great, and then the sermon is great. Or something connects with you. A lot of something connects with people when we're worship together. It doesn't have to be what I say. It's not that important to me as much as does God speak to you? Is God touching your heart? The same in your own family. You know, how sometimes we want to get the credit. Well, you know, I did all of this work. See how nice I am? But it's not about that. It's about, did the work really bring healing, wholeness? Did it bring love to others? Did it make me feel loved? Did it make somebody else feel loved? Or did it cause some trouble to help people let go of old patterns of bad behavior? To remind people, you know, so-and-so doesn't deserve to be treated this way. Or we don't talk about people like that. And think of all the politics that is happening in our world today and all the hate that people are spewing. And to say we're not going to talk, we're not going to participate in that. Even though we may totally disagree with a person who's running for office or is in office, I'm not going to be trashing them because it's just not part of who we are. This is not the servant leadership that Jesus called us to live by. So it's a vision for a different world, and it is a vision for being able to come together, to welcome, to have difficult conversations, to sit and say, you know, how can I wash your feet? One example comes to my mind. It's from a book called, I think you're reading it in your group. What is the book? The Way of Love. Love is the way. Love is the way. Bishop Michael Curry. Thank you. And he talks about this incident where there was major disagreement among church leaders on really hot button issues. And this is the Anglican and Episcopal Church, and they were really struggling and very stuck in that it was going to split the whole church. And somebody had the insight to say, let's wash each other's feet, and then we'll make a decision. And it brought people together in a very different way when you see that human connection. And they still worked through, they had to find a compromise, but it brought a whole different perspective to that vision. Imagine if that happens in families where you have really tough, difficult relationships, and you say, let's wash each other's feet. I don't think that will go over very well, will it? What if that happened? I mean, think about that example. This is not about believing a certain way or not, but really practicing a loving act, a kind of, you know, helping each other in a real way. So today I want us to spend a little bit of time thinking about this and to think about your story, your leadership. What is your specific story and your way of loving and serving the world? Who has mentored you to discover your gifts? You can answer any of these. Who are you mentoring right now? How might we increase the flow of this currency in our church, in our community? So I'm going to invite us to find a neighbor or two and talk to them about this. Any of these, pick one. You only have a couple minutes, so don't worry about something that's striking you now, or anything that is about leadership. And you don't have to do this, you can just enjoy a little bit of silence. that anyone would like to share? Any insights? Or questions or disagreements? Yes.
What came for me was the last question.
Yeah. In the community, yeah, getting that going, yes. Mhm. We're afraid. You know, what if we fail? What if people criticize us? What if people ridicule us? Right. Yeah, what if they want to talk to me? Ew. Ew. And and then now with social media, you know, you do something of any leadership in the community, and then people have all kinds of weird things to say about it. It's like, what the? I give up. I mean, I try not to read those, yeah, especially the comments. I don't know if you ever read those comments, but they're like, what? How did people miss the point so completely? But it is because it's impersonal. It's impersonal, and when you know people, when you know someone, you won't be able to do that with them. So we need to probably increase those connections and get over the fear of. So I mean, that's another thing from COVID we are still dealing with is social skills and the ability to connect. And for children, for older adults, it's very hard when you start separating. It's very hard to step back into it, to feel that connection. And so I hope today I want to share with you one last thing, and this is again from this book, Dare to Lead. And this is about an example she tells in the book about leaders who are vulnerable, who are able to see this kind of leadership as connection to others. And so this comes from the military, from Colonel, she's retired now, but her name is Dee Dee Hatfield, and she discovered in the Air Force that there was an epidemic of loneliness, suicide, people feeling so disconnected, and she wondered what she can do. So she went back to their manual, and so she went to the Air Force Leadership Manual, and she started reading stuff about it, you know, and she read this word, humaneness. So they refer back to a manual that was from 1948, and so they talk about humaneness. So she went back to that old manual, and she's like, oh, leadership, and that what does this mean? And so she was struck by how there were so many words in the 1948 document about feelings, about connections. And so she found words like to belong, a sense of belonging, feeling, fear, compassion, confidence, kindness, friendliness, mercy. And she said, I was amazed. Here's this military document that is talking about leadership with mercy and kindness and belonging and love. And so she said, she was like, what? How could this be possible in a military leadership manual? And so she found 147 references to things like this, emotional pieces. But she was really struck that this kind of language was sanitized from the manual that was edited and published in 2011. She was very surprised. None of this. So they refer to the document from 1948, but they say nothing about any of those feelings when they're talking about the human experience. And so she says, such words weren't used. In sanitizing our language, I think we've decreased our comfort with expressing those feelings and holding that same space for others. And so she knew she had to change the culture, but she knew that if she started up on, you know, can you imagine going to a meeting, military leaders, female leader, you can imagine the stereotypes and the prejudice that's already in existence against her. If she started talking, yeah, let's talk about feelings and all of this, how that would have been received. So she decided to focus on the 6 people under her command. She was a squadron leader, and so she got the 6 leaders, and she thought, you know, if I could just work on these 6 people will make a difference. And again, so leadership, sometimes we think, we're going to change the world. Sometimes it's just about changing yourself and the people you work with, and that's all you can influence. And there's great work to be done if we do that. So she said, I felt if I did nothing more than help these 6 people become leaders with different tools to navigate the challenges of leadership, then I would have done enough. So she found a way, and of course she got some attention after a while. And that's how it works. When people are seeing, something is different. I mean, think of the military and the rate of suicide and the struggle for people who go and serve our country and how they come back damaged, and there's no space for them to be able to speak about their feelings if the leadership is not able to provide that. And so here's a little interview, it's like a minute video about her speaking about her experience.
Air Force Colonel Dee Dee Haffel, who's currently the spokeswoman for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, first encountered Brene Brown's work when she was a squadron commander in Iraq. She's now been trained and certified to teach Brown's techniques to other military officers.
Society is changing, and what society needs from its leaders is changing. It needs leaders who can have really hard conversations around things like race, sexual assault, suicide. So to say you get to be a leader who doesn't talk about feelings, that's not possible anymore.
I can hear people say, an officer in the Air Force, someone who's fighting a war, is not supposed to feel vulnerable. You're not supposed to talk about your feelings.
Vulnerability is the birthplace of courage, and courage is not doing something because you're fearless. Courage is doing something because you may be afraid and you do it anyway.
Anyway, you can, if you're interested, there's a lot of literature that she's put out about her work, and she works with Brene Brown. But the idea is to really connect to that deeper level with people, whether it's washing feet or connecting around difficult issues, having difficult conversations, opening the space for people to feel it's okay to make mistakes. Whatever it is that we can provide in leadership, whether it's sharing a skill like sewing or showing the world a different way to be a leader, and demanding that of our leaders, expecting that from our leaders, and forgiving when people fall short, and learning lessons, holding people accountable and learning lessons instead of just pushing them out. All these pieces are about Jesus' way of coming together, of serving, of following in his footsteps to do things that are even greater than what he did. So I'm going to end with a blessing for leadership, and this is from John O'Donohue. May you have the grace and wisdom to act kindly, learning to distinguish between what is personal and what is not. May you be hospitable to criticism. May you never put yourself at the center of things. May you act not from arrogance, but out of service. May you work on yourself, building up and refining the ways of your mind. May those who work for you know you see and respect them. May you learn to cultivate the art of presence in order to engage with those who meet you. When someone fails or disappoints you, may the graciousness with which you engage be their stairway to renewal and refinement. May you treasure the gifts of the mind through reading and creative thinking so that you continue as a servant of the frontier, where the new will draw its enrichment from the old, and you never become a functionary. May you know the wisdom of deep listening, the healing of wholeness, of wholesome words, the encouragement of the appreciative gaze, the decorum of held dignity, the springtime edge of the bleak question. May you have a mind that loves frontiers so that you can evoke the bright fields that lie beyond the view of the regular. May you have good friends to mirror your blind spots. May leadership be for you a true adventure of growth. Amen.
Please stand and join us for our last song called Nothing More.
To be humble, to be kind. It is the giving of the peace in your mind. To a stranger, to a friend. To give in such a way that has no end. We are love. We are one. We are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace. We are war. We are how we treat each other and nothing more. To be bold and to be brave. It is the thinking that the heart can still be saved. And the darkness can come quick. The danger's in the anger and the hanging on to it. We are love. We are one. We are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace. We are war. We are how we treat each other and nothing more. Tell me what it is that you see. A world that's full of endless possibilities. Heroes don't look like they used to. They look like you do. We are love. We are one. We are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace. We are war. We are how we treat each other and nothing more. We are how we treat each other and nothing more. We are how we treat each other and nothing more.
And for the blessing words from Eric Law, may you go to praise God from whom all blessings flow, circling through the earth so that all may grow, vanquishing fear so that all may give, widening grace so all may live. Amen.